Welcome to Down at the Barns, following the story of people and their love of classic cars, everything from restoration to classic conversion. Please subscribe to our channel in the link below. This week, how to save on your energy bills, the 7-step plan.
So Les, we've had lots of discussions about energy, business is based on it. But how do we manage that cost going forward? I understand you've been using a 7-step plan at home, so why don't you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, Steve and I have a business called Blue Horizon Innovation Limited, and the main purpose of that organisation is to help people with their long-term energy planning for businesses and indeed their own homes. And we really started this middle of 21 when we had the petrol crisis. It's been on the horizon for big increases in gas prices, particularly in the coming months. So we put together this 7-step action plan, energy action plan, for ourselves, first of all. We've got experience to do that type of thing, and we realised that actually there's a lot of people need that type of help. So yes, it could be definitely be applied to your business as well.
Good.
So the high level aim is, as far as possible, is to isolate yourself from the 3 power grids that everybody really uses at the moment.
What are those 3 power grids?
Well, the 3 of them are the electric grid, of course, the national grid, as we'd call it. The second primary energy source is the gas grid, and the third is the petrol station, really. That's an energy source, yes.
Where we just go and get all of our energy from.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it is clear that the government intends long term to, for environmental reasons, to eliminate 2 of those grids. So from 2025 in the UK, there's no more gas boilers in new homes, and there'll be a gradual rundown of gas used for heating and hot water. There'll be no more petrol stations, in long-term future. I'm not saying these things are going to disappear overnight, but the writing's on the wall for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think what's important for your business is, as you expand, how do you build in some of those plans to...
We're a growing business, right? So you're absolutely right. How do I build some of that isolation from the grid, those energy grids, into my business, right? For the long-term future, but also to reduce cost.
Yeah. First of all, it's not an overnight job.
Yeah, I think I recognise that.
Yeah. And if you go through the 7-step process, then you will get to a point at the end of it. You won't have to wait 5 years for some of the benefits.
No, of course not.
At every incremental step, you'll improve your energy security, or you'll improve your cost base for your energy, and it's obviously important to get benefits from that as soon as possible. So the first step is to rationalise, minimise and measure. Those are the sort of key things you've got to do. The first is to accept, I guess, that the rationalisation is, how do I isolate myself from the gas grid and the petrol grid, is the first thing.
That's quite good for us.
Well, yeah.
We're not on the gas grid, and and we don't have
absolutely. And people are buying EVs more and more. A lot of us have got hobbies around classic cars, and the idea of the business is to convert them. It's not for everybody, but it's an important feature to think about. How am I going to use this classic vehicle in the future? And moving it onto the electric grid, of course, gives you that opportunity to continue to use it.
Absolutely.
The second step is, or the second part of that step, is to minimise. So the best bet is, don't use the energy in the first place. Really look at what energy are you using. Can you insulate the property itself? And I know you've done some of that this winter. Particularly down at the barns. Can you minimise drafts? You get air movement in the winter. People feel cold, and then you're pumping more energy in to try and keep them
So
warm.
we've done quite a bit of that, and it has made a difference.
Yeah.
Right. It's certainly made the place warmer. Has it saved energy? Possibly. Has it saved us money, possibly not, but it's a much more comfortable and much nicer place to work.
Yeah, and it will translate, you know, and I guess that comes on to the third part of this step, which is measure.
Right.
You've got to effectively measure. Now, at home, I have a system that has clamps or current clamps on each of the main circuits in the house.
Really?
Yep. And that allows me to see what energy is being pulled by each circuit. Now, as well as allow me to measure, it's important because if you're moving everything onto the electrical grid, you need to know where you've got capacity long term. So yeah, I've put in a measurement system, but that's of course because we need to, you know, Steve and I do that as a business. But you know, with a smart meter, that type of thing, you can understand how much energy you're using, and with some, you know, sort of rudimentary measurements, we can actually find out what circuits are using what energy for you.
Okay, I hadn't thought about it like that.
The second step is to have the ability to load shift.
What do you mean by load shift?
Well, load shifting is where we don't use energy in a linear fashion. So your energy use at home or here at the Barnes is going up and down. I mean, here at the Barnes, it, you know, ramps up around probably 10:30 when you turn up.
Oh, thanks, Les. We're not here at 10:30. We're normally here at 7:30.
Yeah. So it ramps up from 7:30.
Les is here at 10:30.
Goes through to, I don't know, 7 o'clock at night, and then drops off through the night. The profile at home is quite different. You know, there's a bit of breakfast, everybody goes to school and work, comes home in the evening, everything comes on.
Switches the kettle on and off you go.
All that good stuff starts happening. So because we don't use energy in a linear fashion, the national grid really doesn't like that. And that's why you get cheap rate tariffs overnight.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And we've got to have the ability to shift loads so that we can even things out. If you're going to generate power yourself, you want to minimise the installed capacity that you're putting in. So that could mean, in the simplest form, getting timers on washing machines and things like that they just come on.
All right, so you turn it on at a low energy usage time.
Now, that might help you from a cost point of view, but long term what it does is it evens out your load over a day. If you're trying to charge your EV vehicle, clearly you want to time that to come on at A, at the cheapest rate, or B, when you're not using the energy for something else if you're going to generate it yourself. And so that we term as load shifting, the ability to shift load. Now in the future, this is going to become more sophisticated because smart devices will be able to look at either the national grid and say, at the moment, the price has gone really low. I'm going to switch on now.
Oh wow! Okay,
Yeah.
so that's really cool, right?
Yeah, and with your home grid system, let's assume you're generating energy yourself. The sun doesn't shine all the time, and the wind doesn't blow all the time.
We know that.
So you're going to have times where the batteries are nearly full at home. You're producing energy, say from a solar grid or solar panels on your property, and you're getting to a point where, well, hang on, I can't store it, and I'm still producing it. So what you could do at that point is the heating system, for example, would say, turn on. It would understand. So that's what I term a smart grid within your house.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's step 2. Step 3, you then need to start looking at a generation plan. So how do you...
actually creating your own electricity.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So this is where you get energy security. This is where you get control of cost because you're becoming the producer for it.
Okay. Yeah.
But the first step is to work out how much energy do you need,
Right.
because you don't want to install more capacity. You know.
And that comes back to your measure bit, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you've done a lot of the background work in step 1. So now we're trying to work out not only how much energy do we need now, but how much do we need in the future. And when I refer to my plan at home, I have a point now that I know how much energy I need. And you can see in, I think it's the start of next year, I'm expecting to have an EV at home, both for my general use and, of course, the stag.
If we finish it,
Yeah, the stag will be done by then, I'm sure. So as I do that, that goes on my electrical grid at home, so I can see my demand go up.
All right, so you've predicted where you're going to be in the future.
Yeah, and in the diagrams you'll see there, I've predicted it for my regular car, 8,000 miles a year.
Okay.
The energy I would need, and at the moment I've just split that over a sort of daily demand on that. Yeah. And then I've got a fairly new boiler, so I'm not going to go changing that out right now. But over the next few years, I've got to move my heating and hot water onto the electrical grid.
Heat pump?
Possibly. But whatever it is, it ends up on the electrical grid.
Right, okay.
So, I know now how many kilowatts I'm using in heating and hot water, so I can just transform that over to the electrical grid. That lets me see long term how much demand I'd need. Now, referring to your business, you've got the barn now that you're using, you're expanding that, over the coming years. So thinking about how much energy you need now and what are the steps as you go forward as your business grows, and building that capacity in, or at least the option to expand to cover that energy requirement. The aim is to install enough capacity for the average, not the peak.
Okay. Yeah. Otherwise, you overinvest in what you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Hence, load shifting.
Right.
So going back to the previous step.
But is there a selling back to the grid, right? So if you do overinstall, is that an option? Is that something that's?
It is something you can do, but the rates that you get now are so poor that in my view, by far the best thing for you is to use it for your home or use it for your business.
Okay, right, that's clear.
I wouldn't invest.
You wouldn't overinvest,
No.
so to speak. But
you wouldn't overcapacitize with the opportunity to sell it back to the grid.
Okay.
As things stand at the moment, that is really not worth it.
Okay, that's good to know.
So in the charts, you'll be able to see that energy as it builds as we go forward through time.
But I've got to fundamentally get my head round. My electricity bill is going to be much more than it is now.
Yeah, and just look at the numbers on your bill in terms of cost per unit. You're talking about electricity prices which are 5 times the amount gas are. Now I know we're doing this video because gas is going up, and but you're taking things off of a relatively cheap grid, gas, and you're putting them on to an interesting thing is, as you go through my plan, I've got the costs laid out, and I think there's a diagram in there that shows that. But as I move to EV, my energy costs come down because the petrol station grid per kilowatt hour is very expensive.
It's very high, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So of course, as I move the car off of there, because it's a total cost.
Just you talking about this, right? I don't, and I'm sure lots of people don't realise per kilowatt how much things actually cost, right? Because I wasn't aware that gas was 5 times cheaper than electricity at the moment, but then petrol must be significantly more.
Yeah.
I mean, whenever we talk to a customer,
it's the most expensive of the 3 grids.
Yeah, well, I mean, we typically say the cost of running this thing will be about between a fifth and a quarter of what it costs. But putting that into, having this conversation has really opened my eyes to that.
Yeah. So you see, I've done the calculations, and you see my costs go down as the EV comes on board, because I lose the petrol station cost per kilowatt hour, and of course electric cars are much more efficient than burning fuel, so that helps as well. But as you start to move off the gas grid onto electricity,
it goes
the
the other
costs
way,
then
right?
go up.
Yeah.
Now, depend on where gas is going, but I mean, if gas starts to come up to parity with electric, that is a huge increase in people's energy bills.
But it's not just the increase in the cost, right? It's that shift from gas to electric, right? We're going to end up with electric boilers as such, right?
Yes.
Heat pumps, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to cost a lot more to run.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And you've got to have the capacity in your house as well. But because we don't use it in a linear fashion, as we go particularly into green energy, the sun doesn't always shine and the wind doesn't always blow. And so you need to be able to store.
Oh, this sounds like my sort of thing now.
Yes,
Bit
yeah.
of storage, I like that.
So
That means a battery.
yeah, and the most cost effective way to do that is batteries. Again, it's my view that the automotive companies are legally obliged to recycle batteries at the end of first life in the vehicle. So we've done some work down here to understand how we could use EV batteries for storage in the future.
Yeah. We've been working through that.
But I think Eco Classics, as that I know of, is the first in the market, in the sort of retrofit classic market.
To offer the vehicle to grid.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
use your vehicle as the battery to store the energy that you're generating.
Yeah, absolutely. And with a classic vehicle, of course, that's, you know, the classic vehicle spends a lot of time at home. So I'm not saying you could eliminate all the batteries, but you may save yourself a lot of investment.
Yeah, I mean, certainly classics are not an everyday driver necessarily, right?
Yeah.
Depends a little bit on your customer, but yeah, it will be sat at home for, especially during the week, significant periods.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the perfect opportunity
Yeah.
to use it.
Yeah, and the average size of a sort of power wall type thing, I mean, I think...
Powerwall, they're probably about 10 kilowatts or something,
Yeah.
aren't they, right?
And what have you got in a
10
typical...
kilowatt hour.
Yeah. What have you got
Well,
in
our cars generally start around 40,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
E-Type and the 911 have got 65.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean they're big energy storage.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you can generate the capacity, or, you know, I'm not saying you have to completely eliminate yourself from the grid. If you can find out when the grid's pumping out cheap electricity,
Put it in your car.
put it in your car, put it in those batteries, and then reuse it.
And then bring it out again.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But don't do it when you want to use it, of course.
No. No. But there's plenty of smart chargers.
But yeah, but it's all about planning how you use your energy, right? I think we just got to be a lot smarter around that. Let me play this back to you a little bit, just to make sure that I've got it and summarise it for people. So, first few steps of your energy action plan. First one, rationalise and minimise and measure, right? So this is really, don't use it, or at least understand where you are using it and how much you're using over the day, right? So you can see the peaks and troughs. Try and shift the load, right? So that we actually move it, take those peaks and smooth it out. So we try and get to a level amount of energy.
Yeah, to gain the ability to shift load,
Yeah, all right. Come up with a generation plan. So how do we actually generate electricity? So try and, again, as you said, isolate ourselves from the grid. And then finally, a storage plan, right? So where we generate excess electricity that we're not using at that point, we can actually put it into our batteries. And that's the bit I really like. Because I mean, that's where we can offer something different with vehicle to grid.
Yeah, I don't know of anybody but Eco Classics that is offering that on classic conversions and that type of thing. I mean, even most of the major automotives can't do it at the moment. The technology's out there, so it really is on leading edge, that type of stuff. But once you've got to those bits, then really the fun bits start. So step 5 is about selecting the solutions that you've got available to you. So for me, it's solar panels on the roof, photovoltaics. I'm not sure if I can get wind. Steve and I are still looking into that because, you know, I live in a sort of rural village. You know, I'm not.
Yeah, but for us here, in the middle of nowhere, it's pretty windy out there.
Yeah, and that's right. And everybody's plan is different. But one of the other options I've looked at is I can't potentially have my own wind generator, but I can invest in a wind farm. And the wind farm, the electricity that comes out of it, I've already paid for. I have to pay for the national grid to transfer it to me, but I've paid for the investment out of that. So
Wow.
yeah. So there's
That's cool.
companies out there doing that.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. No,
Yeah.
I didn't realise that.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll try and put the links at the bottom of the video to help people with some of these.
Yeah, okay, that's really cool, right?
Some of the ideas, yeah.
That sort of idea.
Yeah. And then step 6, of course, is the implementation of it. There are financial constraints, there's time constraints, and some of the actions are not easy. But getting all of the information together and then putting a plan on a piece of paper.
Just put a timeline down.
Absolutely. Try and keep yourself on that time plan. And then the final step is, and although it's at the end, I would say do it all the time, which is a sort of review and revise the plan as you go.
Yeah, cool. I mean,
Technology is going to change. I mean, we've mentioned a couple of times heat pumps. I mean, they're fairly horrendous in cost at the moment and disruption. It's not just a matter of putting in a heat pump. All your radiators, all the pipework needs changing. The house is wrecked. So I'm hoping over the next 3 or 4 years, when I'm going to be forced to make a decision on that, that other technology will come along and I'll be able to take that. So keep looking at the plan, keep revising it. So there's the 7 steps that we've got, and sounds like we've sold this to Nick.
certainly have. I've just got to go and minimise and measure for a start, right?
Yeah.
I think that's
and
really
we'll help you
relevant.
through those steps. So we work in a partnership down here at the Barnes. So we'll be putting these steps in place with you as we go through it. And
well, hopefully we
come
can
up
share
with a plan.
some of that data with.
Yeah. As we go through the plan and we get a plan together, if there's interest.
I love a plan.
Yeah, and we'll do that.
So Les, thank you so much for taking me through your 7-step plan. We're going to start implementing that. I think we've got loads to learn there, and we'll come back to this, I'm sure, as we go through. So to all the subscribers out there, thank you very much for joining us. And there's some links below. If you go to flick through those, I'm sure that you'll find something that will interest you and help you with becoming more energy secure. Thanks very much.